Oh, morning, team. Tommy G, Middleaged Millennial. And I have just had an amazing breakfast. By the way, give us some feedback on sound quality because I have a new toy. You might even see if I can get him up here. I don't know, we're going to get a name for him. See this fluffy dude here? New microphone. Oh, Pete, give us a sound check. So, yeah, I've got this new toy. Hopefully it works. We're about to find out. Sounds like crap. Okay, I'll take that as a thumbs up from you, Pete. Yeah, hopefully this is going to bring through some better sound and less wind and kind of like environmental stuff than usual. So we're going to give it a crack. But today we have, sounds much better. Awesome. Wow, can't wait to hear it back. And we have Maddie Atanasio also in the house, along with Dr. Rouse. And today we're going to get to the core of the matter. But before we do, it's a day of remembrance, both for Australia and New Zealand, from the First World War and the beaches of Gallipoli. In paying our respects and having a public holiday today, I think in both countries, correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, to remember those that did fall while serving in the First World War to protect our shores, albeit they were around the other side of the world in Europe, storming the beaches of Gallipoli. So, yeah, and Pete, you might have some other comments on that as well, you being more closely related to that part of the world responsibility than I am, and many others. Many of the Anzac events because of political bullshit. Oh, well, that's a damn shame. Yeah, so we actually have a flag. You can't see it from here, but the flag is half-mast here in the condo that I am coming to you from. But yeah, just in remembrance of those that gave their lives so that we could continue to be free. Not free of taxes though, we've still got that one, and some inefficient spending of the way that gets distributed. But anyway, we jumped in and out just then. Let's do something a little more positive. We're going to bring on Matt Atanasio into the house because we are going to get to the core of the matter. And so, bringing you in, big guy, and come on in, Matty. From Studio X on the other side of the world. We're over here at Studio GC on the balcony. Switch out. Oh, cool. I can't hear me. I can't hear him. All right. Okay. I'm wondering if it's because I plugged in. Okay, I think it's on my side. And so I'm going to get my Bluetooth. Dang.
Oh, we got it. We're good.
Yeah, I think it's me. Let me just check volume on this side.
Can you
volume is up.
Can you hear?
It's thinking it's so you can hear me. You can hear me, right? I mean, Pete can hear me. And,
I can hear you.
It's better sound than normal. So
I can hear you loud and clear.
I've got this guy. We've got a new microphone. See this? Check out this little fluffy dude.
All I see is
I've got
me
it plugged
and you.
in. It means I can't hear. It's thinking that I've got earphones plugged in. Give me 30 seconds. You might want to do a bit of a quick intro on what we're going to be doing around core today, Maddie. I'll be back in just a sec.
All right, good. Awesome. What's up, everybody? We know that summer's coming, right? And we know that people like to talk about six-pack abs or even two-pack abs or no abs or bulging abs. Anyway, we want to just discuss some basic ab exercises. What are your abs? What do they do? Their importance. Because anytime you think about an athlete or a non-athlete, somebody who just does everyday living stuff with their families or whatever, they go to work. You have to have a strong core.
Keep going, Maddie.
Yeah. So you have to have a strong core. to stabilize. There you are.
I'm on.
Can you
Woo!
hear-
Okay, cool. I can.
Finally.
What's the sound like?
Now I can hear you, but it's a big time delay.
Oh, that's interesting. Shouldn't be because of this.
Yeah, so it's like a 3-second delay. So
All right.
do you want me
Okay.
to? Do you want me to go back?
Keep going, man. Keep going.
All right. So anyway, so when you talk about the core, we have to realize that it's one of those areas of the body that most people think about is the six-pack, right? They think about the muscles right here. And they're right, but there's a lot more part of the core. So it's not just your six-pack, or some people an eight-pack. If you're that lucky, genetically speaking, that you can see at the bottom all the way up to the top of the rib cage. So you have multiple core muscles that not only are the six-pack, what you can see, but your core muscles are all over your trunk. So for example, you have your we call it the rectus the rectus abdominis muscle. That's the six-pack muscles. You have your obliques, your internal and external obliques. Okay, you have your erector spinae muscles, the muscles behind you. You have the muscles of your upper back that run along the spine. In my opinion, to some extent, I think the neck muscles have a little bit of core responsibility as well. You have the deep abdominal wall, which is called the transverse abdominis, which is the muscle that kind of keeps your pelvis stable. You can't see the muscle. It's very deep, and it goes sort of throughout the pelvis in a deeper level, and it controls the pelvis. So it has to fire on its own. It's not something that when you look at your body in the mirror that you can see when it's contracting. But what it does, it actually helps to brace your stomach. It helps to bring your abdominals like in towards your spine. It's kind of like a natural weight belt. So we have to understand that the core muscles, be it the muscles here, the obliques, the muscles in your lower back, okay, even parts of your hip muscles, are hugely important for supporting your pelvis, your spine, your rib cage, your thoracic spine, your neck. I try to tell people this in a very small, condensed way. And is this scientifically proven? Not necessarily. It's just been doing this for so long. If you were to, and it sounds kind of odd, but just bear with me. If you took your arms off, your legs off, if you took your head off, and all you had was your pelvis, your spine, and your neck,
You'd be
to
dead.
me, that's your core. Well, yeah, you'd be dead, yeah. But but the key is those are your core muscles, because that's what controls your spine and your pelvis. All those muscles, even the rib muscles, all these muscles control what goes on in your spine and your pelvis. And there's a lot of them. And so we need them to be not only strong, but we need to, because the core muscles do numerous things. The core muscles stabilize you. They flex your upper body. They extend your upper body. They laterally flex your body. They rotate your body. They also decrease those motions. So in contact sports, for example, if I get hit from behind, right, whether it's rugby or football or hockey, in a contact sport, if I get hit from behind and I go forward, my core muscles have to fire to prevent me from falling forward. If I get hit from my side, these muscles on a reactionary basis have to stabilize my upper body so I don't fall, right? If I get hit in the front and I go backwards, these muscles have to stabilize my body. So they're not just to look good. They have a lot of function that's just more than aesthetics. They're really important in posture. They're very important in flexibility. They're important in dynamic movement patterns. They're very important in digestion. Your diaphragm is a big part of it in terms of breathing. So your core muscles are very much used on a daily basis. I'm trying to find a comfortable position, so bear with me. So my point of the matter is, yes, summer's coming. You want to look good in your six-pack. You want to look your core to look good. But remember this, it's also important for prevention of injuries, especially the lower back, okay? So if you can think of your core 3 different ways. Number 1, it's important for stabilization of your body. Number 2, it's important for flexion of your body. And it's also important for extension, as well as rotation. So these are all factors that a lot of people don't consider. Now, when you talk about training, and there's a whole other story there. And what exercises do what? What exercises are stabilization exercises? What exercises are flexion exercises? What are anti-flexion exercises? What exercises are rotational exercises? What exercises are anti-rotation? These are all important in building up a program to strengthen your core. Now, when you look at the core, when it comes to movement, I said before, when you stand up and you take your steps to walk forward, the deep abdominal wall muscles have to fire to stabilize your pelvis and your spine so that your legs have enough strength to move forward. So one of the examples is if you take a baby and you hold a baby on your, put your baby's feet on your legs, and you hold their hands, right? It's the cutest thing ever, obviously. But when you hold their hands and their feet are on your legs, all you see is the hips and spine just kind of doing this wave thing, right? It's hilarious. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to right themselves and balance and stabilize themselves. They also do that when they crawl and eventually when they stand. So the core is involved in so much. So when you have a stronger core, the power muscles, the muscles that propel you forward, that make you jump higher, run fast forward, move laterally, the core muscles are the things that have to fire first and stabilize you because it's the center of gravity. So you can have strength and power and explosiveness at your arms and legs.
So it seems like to me, Matty, then, it's like, if we take another metaphor of this, I mean, the brain is central to everything from a nervous system point of view, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, right. Be it sympathetic, the autonomic nervous system, the whole shebang, the whole wiring.
Yeah.
But then we look at all the muscles, and could we look at the core being the hub, or like the brain, because it's connected to everything, like the brain is from a nervous system point of view, but it's connected to all the muscles. I mean, you've got to start with getting like a strong core to begin with, because it's kind of connected to everything in the center. Would that be right?
Well, listen, is a portion of your core connected to your fingertip muscle? You could say that. Is it connected to your wrist there?
Indirectly.
Is it connected to your...
Yeah.
Yeah, because what happens is, listen, the farther away you have weight or anything from your body, the farther away, the more demand it's going to put on your core. Right?
The levers. So you got the levers, yeah.
It's all about levers and fulcrums and physics, right? So the farther away you put stress and tension from the midline of your body, the midline, the more strain it's going to be on that area. So because it's like, I always say this, if you take a tree trunk, right, and the branch that comes off it, the farthest branch that has the most weight on it is going to probably bend and break, right? Now the tree trunk has to be stable to hold that branch in place. Right, and the analogy is there because we need to have a strong, stable structure like a trunk, and that's why this is called the trunk, right? So think of your trunk as the area where we generate power, and we can use that power through force into the ground, through our hands and through our feet and our legs. So if you have I'll put it this way: people who have back pain know that it's very difficult to stand up, to sit down, to walk, and to move. So when you have a back issue, which typically a lot of times it could be a core issue, a weakness of the core, unless it's a blunt traumatic thing, ultimately speaking, the legs and the arms will have to work that much harder because you have instability at the lumbo-pelvic hip complex, the spine. So we know that if we need to generate strength or power or force at the arms and legs, we must have a strong core because that's sort of the platform which we can push off of. So yeah, I mean, it's really, really important to understand that the core actually connects every muscle in some type of way through the nervous system, through the activation of the body. So yeah, absolutely. Okay,
all right. I mean, I've noticed that when I've done, if my lower back is sore, which for my health type as well as a phenotype tends to be a characteristic, that once I do some core exercises in the gym, it sorts it out. It's like, along with maybe some yoga as well for flexibility, but I notice if I do core stuff, I've hit the gym, my lower back
Yeah.
pain tends to just disappear, like instantly almost.
Yeah, so
Right.
here's the thing, like if I've ever had back pain or stiffness,
Yeah.
I know that that muscle probably strained, most likely, unless there's a disc issue of some kind. A lot of times there's a weakness of the opposite muscle. So the extensor muscle,
Right.
which is the muscle, and
Yeah.
the extensors had had to fire, or they strained themselves to fire to control something because the internal deep abdominal wall muscles didn't fire when they were supposed to. So what happens a lot of times is you can have a delay from the
Right.
brain to those muscles through the spinal cord and the nervous system of your deep abdominal wall, especially if they haven't been trained or utilized. There may be a delay of them firing, which then puts the strain elsewhere and it spreads it out, and it could
Right.
go to the lower back. So what happens is, like, here's an example. I know I work with somebody that when we play tennis, okay, they can
Right.
have lower back pain. Now, why would that be if they're not working their, well, they're working their core a lot, because when they run to
Yeah.
their right or their left and they have to stop and they have to hit the ball, when they run and then they plant their body to hit, when they plant, their whole body shifts, like
Yeah.
they shift. And if the pelvic muscles, the deep abdominal muscles aren't firing quickly, the lower back takes on the brunt of the work.
Right.
And then that's what's used to stabilize your hips and your pelvis and your core and your
Right.
spine, which is
Right.
not what you always want. You want it's kind of like a symphony, okay? In a symphony, and this is sort of like the whole body, a symphony has multiple
and
yeah, and they all have a job. The brass,
they're all orchestrated.
right, the wind,
They're orchestrated.
they all and they have to stay in time. They have to stay in tune. They have to have the right amount of tension in their instruments. They have to have the right amount of everything, and they have to play the right notes at the right time. That's no different than your muscles of your body. So if your core is weak or it's not firing properly when it's supposed to, then other muscles will have to do more, like your lower back or other areas, and they could strain. And so the symphony or the synergistic work that's supposed to happen in your body isn't happening. So the core
Wow.
is really, really important. It's at the center of everything. And that's why
Right.
when I love the word core, it's just like everything. The core issue from the inside out
the core.
has to be, is the core. And those
Well,
muscles
so
that control your pelvis and your spine.
So that's what I found interesting. And like when you've got me on some of the exercises that you've got me doing as well, and how it's kind of graduated, I can see how what you're doing is actually getting certain muscles to wake up. You talked about firing before. I didn't really know much about that. That you're like re-educating the brain. That, hey, dude, remember, let's practice this, because there is a butt muscle there called a glute maximus that's supposed to be working. And you know, and I've been when Anne was here, we'd go running on the beach, and she would say, point to that person, and say, "See that person? The way they're running, their glutes aren't firing, or this isn't firing, or that isn't firing." Isn't like there's spark. The brain isn't going, dude, do your thing. It's like it loses connection, which is weird.
Well, we could call it muscle amnesia, right? The muscles are asleep, right? So what happens is there's the neurological drive, the electricity to that specific muscle isn't strong enough. Therefore, the muscle doesn't contract either fast enough, powerful enough, strong enough, whatever you want to call it. And so what happens is other muscles have to take over. So when we talk about the core is very much a part of injury prevention as much as it is about performance. And so I know this. If you were to ever watch, I'll just take a simple sport like track, okay?
Yeah.
Because typically you could kind of watch, because the camera's right in front of them. When you watch a sprinter run, watch their core muscles, or at least watch the midline of their body. It is so strong, stable, to allow the wheels, the arms and legs, to pump fast. So imagine this. Think of the car you drive, okay, or the bike, or whatever. The frame of the car is the key to that car moving. And what I mean by that is, if you have a bent frame or a cracked frame, no matter how powerful your engine is, no matter how great your tires look, no matter how good the body looks, If the frame of the car is weak or cracked
It's
or
all sloppy.
misaligned, the car will not be explosive. It will not have power. It's good.
It won't perform as well. It won't handle as well. It won't perform as well.
Right.
Energy
So
will
if
just
you-
get dissipated into bending around like a floppy whatever.
Exactly. The dissipation of energy. So when you have a strong and stable core, you produce more force out your arms
Right.
and legs. And therefore
Right.
you run faster, you jump higher, you move quicker, you change direction quicker, you get in and out of your bed quicker and easier. So here's the
You're
key.
feeling better. Less pain.
Yes, less pain.
There's
And
no
here's the bottom
overstrain
line.
in other areas that are overcompensating.
The whole band, the whole symphony's working
Got
together.
to play together.
Now,
Right.
Yes.
Right.
it's so critically important. And I think in the end, the ultimate goal of training somebody, training an individual, or you training yourself,
Yeah.
is
Right.
you want the least amount of input with the most amount of output. If you have
Efficiency.
to work really, really hard to get just, and here's an example. Let's say you and I want to race, and we're not getting off the core topic, but we're just going to go here for sort of, if we're running a race and you and I are the same speed, sprint-wise, and you put me in the sand and you get to run on concrete, right?
Yeah.
Every time I try to take a step and my feet press and they sink and and the energy dissipates out, right? And you don't have that problem because you're on a stable platform. You run faster because why? Because you're on a stable, strong platform that gives you the ability to push and run faster. I have to work harder just to do the same amount of speed. So when your core is weak and it's not stable and it's not strong nor powerful, then you're going to have a problem generating force out your arms and legs, the big muscles that propel you. Does that make sense?
Got it. Yeah.
Cool.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what do we do with exercises then? I don't know if this is where you're going. Sorry. I mean, go where you're going to go, but I'm thinking, okay, what are the best core exercises? I'm now intrigued.
Well, I remember I went over this with you real quick.
Yeah.
Understand that there's sort of three things about the core, okay, and pretty much every muscle. But the first, I call it the pyramid of success, especially with training.
Yeah.
Ultimately speaking, we want to move as efficient as possible. That's power. At the top of the pyramid, right? The top of the pyramid is we want to have power in all ways of life.
Yeah.
We want to be self-empowered. But in order to have power, you need to have strength. So right below that power, you need to have strength first. Can't have power if you don't have strength. And underneath that, the sort of foundation is you have to have stability. So if you're unstable or unstable, you can't be strong, nor can you be powerful. So at the bottom, you have to be stable. Then you have to build strength on top of that, and on top of those two, then you get power. So, for example, if you're trying to do a core exercise, here's an example: a push-up.
Yeah.
A push-up is a strength exercise for most people, but it involves stability at the core. Because here's an example. I'll see if you could sort of see this. And you see a lot of people do this. So if I'm in push-up position, right? Now, if I'm doing my push-ups and my hips start to do this, right? What's happening? My pelvis is collapsing.
You're bending around your back. It's like collapsing. Yeah.
Right. So that's instability
Back
or lack of. Yeah. That's instability at the spine and the pelvis and the core. When I keep my core stable and strong, my whole body goes down as one unit. Does that make sense? But if I start to fade and my core isn't stable enough or strong enough, then I can't do a quality push-up because I lost stability of the spine, right?
Got it.
That's just a simple example of stability at the spine. And any exercise that has any amount of arms and legs involved. When you do a deadlift, right? If you take a bar or a dumbbell and you do a deadlift, right? Notice notice how my spine is flat and straight. Now notice my spine here. That's not stable at all. So I can't lift the weight with my instability of my pelvis. Here I'm in a strong, stable. athletic position. Right? This is
Yeah.
stable and strong. So in order for me to develop power, I have to have stability of my core, and then strength, and I can. So let's go over some very basic, simple core exercises. Now, typically when I start somebody out, depending on their level of stability and strength, after some type of an assessment, we would do stuff on the ground. Understand this. The core is something that when you move your arms and legs, specifically your legs, the core has to work harder because it's trying to keep your pelvis stable. So when I move my legs, my pelvis can't be rocking back and forth. But let's do a quick. When people talk about tightening the core or bracing your core, right? If you look at my stomach, watch. See, it looks like I'm pregnant. So when you breathe through your diaphragm, your stomach goes out, and then you exhale, it comes back in. And you do that naturally, right? You do it naturally.
Yeah.
You don't even have to think about it. Now, if I do a push-up exercise, my goal is to sort of brace or draw my core slightly in.
Slightly in.
Which is kind of like a weight belt, by the way. It's your own built-in weight belt.
Right. There we go. The stability.
Built in.
Okay.
Yeah. So I stabilize that because what happens is I want my spine and my pelvis and my ribs to be stable while I move my arms when I do a push-up. If I have instability in my pelvis and my spine, then I'm going to be like this when I'm doing my push-ups.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
It's like, and
it looks good on the dance floor, but when you're doing push-ups, it doesn't look good.
it doesn't look good, right.
So we want to have stability. So by bracing, another thing that you could kind of utilize, if you ever and I know you can understand this, and so do I, if you live near the water, or if you go in a pool or an ocean, and the water's cold, when you walk in, what's the first thing that you kind of do? Everything kind of like just shrink wraps. Everything kind of just goes in. It's like, right? So you kind of want to, it's kind of like that. You shrink wrap your abs just to kind of tighten them a little bit, to stabilize. Now, let's talk about some exercises real quick. So for example, I'm going to do a very basic exercise. Now notice my core sticks out. As soon as my core sticks out, my lower back arches off the ground. There's space here. That's no good. So for example, if I do a level 1 basic exercise where my feet are up, my core has to be flat and my lower back into the ground. So what I do is I go like this. I inhale, exhale, draw, and then keep my back flat in the ground. Lift my legs up. Now, with my core tight and my lower back touching the ground or close to the ground, I move one leg at a time, up and down. If I could do this without my back arching, see how my back arches? That's no good.
Right, you got to keep that lower back to the ground.
You want your pelvis stable by keeping your core tight. So this is called limb motion to create stability of the pelvis and your core.
Okay. So you can't even put your hand in the arch at the moment? Is that what you're saying? It's like it is flat, or is it slightly arched?
I'm not jamming it. I'm just keeping it in contact. Right? So for example, if I was to put a blood pressure cuff underneath me, and I wanted to maintain that pressure at a certain amount of pressure, I could look at that blood pressure cuff and say, okay, I'm at that pressure. Can I keep that pressure? As soon as I release, the pressure shuts down. Right? But I need to keep the core strong and my lower back in a certain position to keep my pelvis neutral.
Right.
We don't want the pelvis.
So you're not pushing it into the floor. You're just keeping it still in neutral, and you can actually, there's still a slight arch. Yeah.
A very slight neutral position. Now, if I have a little bit of my lower back in the ground, that's not a problem. The problem is when people start to make it tougher, here's what happens. When you go like this, and you go all the way out, and you fully straighten your legs, the lower back starts to arch. So
it does.
Ever see this?
Like extra strain.
So what happens is people do the leg lift exercise, right? They lay on the ground, and they do this exercise where they lift the feet, right? But what happens is you create this space. No
You
good.
do.
So what happens, they raise and lower their feet, but their pelvis is rocking back and forth. That's instability of the pelvis. So you want to keep your core tight.
Right.
So this is
the
a
legs going.
basic core exercise. Can you control
There
your
we go.
pelvis? Keep your core tight,
Okay.
right? Now,
Okay, got
to
it.
make it a little bit harder, you move the leg
Yeah.
farther away from your pelvis,
So
right?
bigger
And if you want to
angle
make it
at
even
the knee.
harder, yeah, you
little
start to
more
go closer
angle.
to the
Okay, all right. So you've got your own, you've got your own weight variance thing built in by the straighter that you go, right?
Right. And the farther away the leg goes from the pelvis, the harder it gets. The more
There you go.
you're closer to the body, the easier, right? The farther away,
Yep.
the harder. So the goal is to keep your pelvis from rocking back and forth like that the whole
Okay.
time.
So how,
Okay, good.
So how many of these, Pete? That's not Pete. I'm saying Pete. Maddie, how many of these would you do if you're like, you know, we've got our heavy traveling execs, and I'm always thinking about stuff for them too that they can do in the hotel room, in the plane, even in the car, right? Especially if you're in India, you are in a car for a long time. So how many of these would you need to do, or for how long, or what's the deal? Per day, every second day, what is it?
Well, it obviously depends on the person's strength and stability and of the core.
Beginner,
I always say
intermediate?
I always say start off with 8 to 10 reps per leg. But what happens if you notice that your stomach's starting to go up
so you're just
towards the
doing one
ceiling?
leg.
Right. Well,
Sorry,
you alternate legs.
We're still doing alternating. We're still alternating.
Alternate. Now, what happens? I like to do is I like to put my fingertips inside my belly button, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And if I feel my belly button push against my fingertips, that means I'm releasing the deep abdominal muscles, and I'm losing that. Okay. Now, what happens is once I lose it, I have to reset. So I engage and I reset
and then right. So you got to set
So
up.
if I say get 8 to 10 per side, I want to make sure that I can do 8 to 10 nonstop without losing that core stability. So
Got it.
by moving my legs, I'm creating more tension at the pelvis and core. The farther away my feet are from my hips, the harder it becomes. Right?
Right.
Now, that's a very good core stability exercise because I'm moving a limb and I'm challenging the core while I move the limb. Now, if I wanted to work on what we would call the lower abdominal region, okay, which most people, you can isolate specific parts of the core, but a lot of times people need to work the lower half. One of the exercises I like is just a simple reverse crunch. So what you do is you take your knees and hips at 90 degrees. Notice there's a 90-degree angle, and then there's 90 degrees here. You can have your hands behind you or at your side, but I'm going to put them here so you can see. What you do is you lift your pelvis up, okay? And you try not to change the angle at your knees or your feet. It's not this. It's not this exercise. That doesn't really do much. That's just rocking.
Right.
But if I go like this, if I lift up, and you notice that my hips only, see the hips only. It's not this. See, this motion is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for hips only. Now,
Hips only. Look at that, raising it off and raising the arch off the deck. Okay.
you take your pelvis and you do what we call a posterior tilt. Okay? So you tilt your pelvis and you go up and down. Up
and your
down.
calf muscles and shins are like parallel to the floor, by the looks.
Yeah, my
Just trying to
shins
get
are
the right
parallel.
Angle, right angle there. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, got it.
So exactly a right angle.
Yeah.
So
okay.
that's a great lower. Now you can make that harder by raising your upper body off the ground, but just by working on the basic level 1, this way, and just slowly getting your legs farther away. That's a core stability exercise. Can I keep my core stable while I move my legs, right? And eventually you could maybe get to do both legs without having your back arch like this, back and forth. This exercise is more towards the lower abs. So what happens
all the work
is,
should be happening there, right? Around the belly button. All the work should be happening around the belly button.
so here's the deal. When I lift my pelvis up,
Yeah.
I use the lower abs, but what happens is the upper abs stabilize my rib cage, okay? And that allows me to bring my
Right.
pelvis towards my ribs, my pelvis towards my
the
ribs.
compression. It's
Right?
pulling, so all your abs are pulling. So your core's engaging, and then all your abs are pulling towards your nose, basically.
Yeah. So it's called a reverse crunch. Okay?
Reverse crunch. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a very
And how many
simple
of those?
exercise.
How many of those to knock out? Once you've done the other 8 per leg, let's say 16 total of
Right.
this,
Uh-huh.
then you're doing how many of these?
You could start, listen, honestly, some people have a tough time just getting their hips off the ground, right?
Right.
And so 5 to 10, where are you?
5 to 10.
The key here is this. If you can lift your
You're not on
pelvis
the
off
bed. You're not on the bed, right? Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. You're on the floor, or
Well, if you're on the bed, if the bed's not firm enough, you're going to sink, which is no good.
Yeah.
But here's the
it's-
key.
it's-
When you
it's-
do a
it's screwed up.
reverse crunch, you have to make sure your pelvis does not crash land. A lot of people will they'll use their hands, they'll come up here, and then they'll crash.
So there's an
Up here,
eccentric movement.
Yes.
Right.
So the
Right.
key here is the soft, I call it soft landing. Hips up,
Soft,
soft,
slow landing back.
up,
Slow.
soft.
Slow
Soft
back,
landing.
Soft.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Very important. Okay. All right. There's 2 gems. I mean, geez, you can just do those on the floor. Bang. And we're talking about the core here. We're talking about the hub.
Yeah.
Headquarters, muscle
Very
headquarters.
simple. Very simple exercises. Now, there's another core exercise which a lot of people do. It's called a plank, right?
Oh yeah.
And you see planks, and everybody talks about planking. The
Side
problem is
planks
a lot of people.
and all sorts of planks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do a plank exercise, you have to make, and I'm going to demonstrate it on a bench for now, just to make it so that we could all see. Hopefully we could see
Okay.
this. And I want to stress the importance of a plank exercise. Planks are great, but the problem is if your hip flexors are too tight, your lower back's going to arch. Okay, here's what I mean.
Right.
So what happens is, let's say I'm on the ground. Obviously I'm not, but I'm
Yep.
going to do a modified version so everybody can see.
Yeah.
So what happens
Okay.
is, this is how I teach it. The first thing we do, if you notice my lower back is arched, right?
Yeah.
Now my lower back, now I'm rounded.
Punched.
We have to find, we
Yeah.
want to find the middle ground. So what I do is I tuck my pelvis. Now, see the
Yep.
difference?
Right.
So
Yeah,
so
nice
what
and straight.
happens is you tighten these muscles right here, and you take your pelvis and you just do this.
Right. Just
so you go
rotating
from
the
this,
pelvis on an axis.
and you just go
It's
like
like
that.
you've got an axis right in the. If there's an axis, if I go to your pocket and I drill straight through and put an axle through there,
Right through here.
you're just rotating around that.
Yes, this looks good
Yeah.
for obvious reasons in certain things, but not good when you're doing a plank. So you take this position, you
Right.
tighten your abs, and then you squeeze your glutes. Now this
Got
keeps
it.
my spine in a good
Glutes.
neutral
The bump.
position. Now watch. Right here, my arms are in the bench or on the floor, and then what I do is glutes tight, abs tight. Now here's what I do. Right leg straight, left leg straight. Okay?
Right.
Now, the whole goal is to maintain a neutral pelvis position the whole time. So right now,
So
my
you've got a
focus-
clenched butt. You got a clenched butt right now, yeah?
I call it the $1 million squeeze.
Well, like- $1 million squeeze.
Yeah,
Right.
if
So
I put-
that's
if I
what
put
I've been
a-
forgetting
if I-
is getting the glutes in as well.
If I put $1
Okay,
million
go on.
between your butt cheeks, if I put $1 million
Can't get
between
it
your
out?
butt cheeks, don't let anybody take it, right? So here's the point.
Right. Okay.
Keeping your core tight this whole time prevents this. But you see
Right.
people planking and their back's arched. No good. You want to keep
Yeah.
a neutral spine position, not this.
Yep.
And you see
Yeah.
this a lot. People will, I could do 3-minute planks. Look at my spine. Big deal. Your
Yeah.
spine's about to crap out. It crapped out
collapse,
2
yeah.
minutes ago. Yeah. So we got to lock in and got to stay stable. And honestly, you
Right.
could do this. You could do that exercise anywhere. You could do it on a countertop, a table, a couch, a bed.
Right. Right.
Off a seat. You can then eventually get to the
Chair.
floor where you can actually hold it for 20 to 30 seconds without collapsing your pelvis and your abs.
Chair,
Now,
desk,
well, you could-
bed, bench.
Yep. Now you could add motion at the legs, right? This challenges the core more because you're on one leg and you're trying to keep your pelvis neutral. Now watch.
Nice.
Watch my pelvis. See my spine and pelvis? That's no good, right? But you see
That's
people
not good.
do
You're
it all
moving
the
in
time.
and out. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to keep your pelvis stable. Notice there's hip motion, there's not spinal motion, right? So we want to move our legs without any hip or spinal motion. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. Hey, you better get these right from now on because Jamie's just jumped on. She's going to be watching this.
Awesome.
Jamie Livingston.
That's great.
You're an esteemed company.
Cool.
There we go.
I know.
Right.
She's very, very good. So that's a simple, basic exercise for the core.
Okay.
Now, when you talk about a side plank,
So that's 3 we got down. Hello, Jamie. So we got three of them down. Right. And how many of those should you do? And is it every day or every second day again?
A plank. Let's just start something with planks a couple times a week, maybe 3 times a week, and have them do like 3 sets. And typically for me, how long can they hold that neutral pelvis position? Typically beginners, maybe 15 seconds, sometimes 20, and then just gradually build it up to about 40 seconds, and then maybe make it tougher. So if you start at an angle like this, then go down a little bit lower, then a little bit lower, but work your way towards the floor to where you can hold the floor for a good 30 seconds. But a lot of times people lose that core position, right? And it always depends on what you're trying to accomplish, what phase of training you're in. But in any case, so that's a basic plank. Now, if you're talking about working the stability of the core in a lateral flexion way, side planks, let me bring this down here. There's multiple ways to do this. So for example, a lot of times, you're gonna lose part of me, but that's all right. People do side planks, right? And they'll do this, they'll do this, right? But what happens is when they do this, they start to collapse and they start to, they lose their everything. The shoulder starts to hurt.
Right. And they're moving out of that plane as well. They're not sort of like, they're kind of in 3 dimensions all over the place.
Yes. So what we want to do is this. We want to align the body in a straight line. So what I do is I teach people, I want you to get your elbow under your shoulder. I want you to make sure your hips and your shoulders are in a straight line. So it's a straight line from your shoulder, hip, knee, ankle, right? A straight line.
Okay.
Now, if you're a beginner, you bend your knees where your knee and your hand are in alignment and your feet are kind of behind you, like this. It's a modified version, right? Now, what we're going to do is
You continue.
Yes.
Someone's ringing the door.
Ring the door. So when you're doing a side plank, tighten your core, like we discussed earlier on. Hand on the hip. Be tall in your posture. Shoulders back, chin in. And when you want to raise your hips up off the ground to work this part, you tighten my right ribs right now, and I tighten them up, and then I lift my hips off the ground, and I hold the position right about there, okay? Now, it looks odd because the pocket's hanging down, but I'm in a neutral position. And my whole goal here is to keep my elbow under my shoulder. If I'm like this, my shoulder is going to start to bother me. If I'm like this, trying to hold my shoulder is going to bother me. I have to be underneath, and I keep my hips in a good hip height. Now I tighten. I'm strong here. I'm trying to stabilize my right side, and I hold this, let's say, for 10 seconds. Then I can drop. Then I re-engage. Tighten the core. Be tall in your posture. Make sure you're in good alignment. And then tighten your right rib muscles and lift your hips up and hold.
Lift it up. Yes.
And then once you get to 20 and 30 seconds, good. Now you could also do range of motion where I would come up and then I can lower down an inch or two and back up. Lower down an inch or two and back up. Those are tough too. Now that's the modified version. I could also do it with straight-legged, where I'm in a good straight line from ear to all the way down to the feet. Be tall in your posture. That's everything. And then lift your hips up and hold. Now, when I do this, I really focus on my right rib muscles here. And my shoulder blades are strong and stable. And then I go for the correct amount of time and I'm done. Okay, that's sort of an advanced version. You can add so many other elements to that exercise, the side plank, if you want. Again, you could raise and
Right.
lower your hips up and down, right? Just like that. That's a great exercise too. So those
Sweet.
are side planks.
This is my mother. She's just come into the studio. This is Deanna.
Awesome.
That's Matt. There we go. All right, you got these core exercises. You got to start learning how to do those. All right. Yeah. There we go. All right.
Yeah, basic.
Sorry to interrupt the flight.
Basic.
Okay,
That's all right.
My 11 o'clock has arrived.
Yeah, listen, moms are important, as you know.
Yeah.
So we did a basic supine exercise on our back. Then we did the regular plank, and then we just did a side plank, right?
Side plank. Yep.
Mm-hmm. You could also do so many different exercises. Tell me, how much time do you have?
I've had family rock in, but
okay.
I'm good for one more.
One more?
You got some more
Okay.
you want to? Yeah, one more.
We can do one more.
All right.
We can do one more.
And maybe just thinking about too, Matty, if we've got people that fly around a lot, they're sitting down a lot.
Yeah.
In those crappy economy seats.
Uh-huh.
So somehow counteracting the damage that's doing to the core, if possible.
Well, all those exercises went over are great. Obviously,
All work, right?
anything you could do where you're involving the glutes, right? And we've talked about these. We've talked about, hip lifts or hip bridges.
Right.
Where we do double leg hip lifts to work the glutes. The glutes are very
that
important.
That one probably works against like sitting down the best, right? If I look at one that counteracts that sitting down right angle position, that's probably the best one I was thinking. I don't know.
Listen, anytime you can work on strengthening your glutes and your hips to any extent, it's a great thing. Because your hips are part of your core. It's a vitally important aspect to help be part of the motor of moving your body. And so the hips are very, very important. And doing a hip lift is great. So, and again, you could do the double leg version. You go this way. Then you could do the single leg version this way. If you wanted, and if you had a gym or you had something that weighed something, you could put it right on your pelvis, and you could hold it there and just add some resistance, right? So because the balance of the front of the body and the back of the body in terms of strength and flexibility and power and stability is so important. So we have a lot of people who are flexors. They're in constant flexion mode. We have to get into extension.
Punching over, you're in the computer. You're in the white desk. The white collar factory.
Yeah, and the key is to have balance, the strength in the front of the body and then the strength in the back of the body. The flexibility of both sides is so. And this is all part of having a strong, stable, and powerful core. Obviously, we haven't gotten to any strength and or power core exercises, which we could do next week. But in the end, the whole point of this is to address and there's numerous core stability exercises we haven't done either. But the importance of the core cannot be emphasized enough, because what we're talking about is we're trying to do what? We're trying to create stability of your lumbar, pelvic, hip complex. Anything that goes from your pelvis all the way up your spine and to your neck area. So when they're strong and stable, you can use your arms and legs better. You can ambulate, you can move forward, you can walk better, right? When you have weak core muscles, weak core muscles lead to injuries, lead to postural issues, structural issues, neck pain, headaches, lower back problems. They could lead to digestive issues if you don't work your core. Also breathing. We have to understand that the diaphragm is part of that. All right, and we didn't really dig into that too. So there's so much about the core that doesn't get talked about, because everything's about the six-pack, right? You could get a six-pack. I mean, you could get a six-pack by doing core. Obviously, it helps to what you eat in the gym for the aesthetics. You got to eat what's good in the kitchen too. But
exactly.
I know you got to run, and so do I. The core is really, really important. I just want to emphasize to people, if you want to work your core, if you want to start at a basic level or if you are more advanced and you want more exercise that are appropriate for you, just message me. Just let me know, and I'll look at you, and very simply we can come up with a game plan. There's so many things you could do with just your body weight, and then you could do stuff after that.
Look, totally, you know, and beyond that, but it's so key. It's, you know, it's muscle headquarters, I reckon, you know, as a layman sort of looking in, that I think everybody needs that foundation. And so I think this is fundamentally important. I think so. The next session, I think we should perhaps continue with some other core stuff to really drive the point home. And yeah, anything more, any other help, any questions that you have, there's Matt. He's your man. Matt, the man, Athanasio. PM him directly. Yep, go on. You're going to say?
Our next session, I'm going to be one more year around the sun. You know that.
Whoa! Someone's got a B-day coming up. Woohoo!
Yeah,
all right, man. I'll be looking for that on Facebook for the reminder. Yeah, another one. Ha! Happens to the best of us, man.
Don't bother. It doesn't bother me.
It doesn't bother me either. You know, it's like
careless.
I'm feeling younger than I did years ago, right? In my 30s.
Totally. So
there you go. And I'm not shitting. Neither are you. So yeah, and the Hill.me community, for those that want to learn some more for some specific little tidbits here and there. And of course, invitation only, but please put your hand up if you're an exec in the corporate world and you're after some specific one-on-one help. I can, and so can Maddie, help you out there as well as the other experts that we have in there, like Peter Rouse, Cam McDonald from PH360. We've also got Dave Kuzunski, who is the CEO and founder of Heads Up Health, which is the aggregation platform for all your devices and technology and telemetry, which I use as well, right, and helping people out. So, guys, that's about it for today. Have a great Anzac Day, and remembering those that fell to keep the rest of us free here on the planet in the Australian, New Zealand part of the region and part of the world, and get into those core exercises, and remember to enjoy life right here, right now. When, Maddie?
Right here, right now. Get to the core of it. It's where it's where your happiness is, at the core. Today,
at the core, inside out.
Be
Catch
present.
you on the next one, brother.
You got it.
Be present. That's all you got. See you next time, man. Bye, guys.